Good morning and welcome to the Industrial Insights Podcast. I have Hannah Testani with me of Intelligent Audit. Her firm helps people audit their transportation spend and transportation spend management. And so increasingly, people have started to figure out different ways to optimize their multi carrier strategies. And then now, with the war and diesel prices, like that will be an increasing pinch that will cause prices to go up and perhaps people to scrutinize their shipping expenses even more. So, Hannah, thanks for being here today and exploring the topic with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jess, and I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Yeah. So, tell me, give me a better description of what you guys do for people than I gave.
You did a pretty good job. So we work with anyone who ships anything, and we take their global transportation data. So you kind of key in on the war, and that definitely impacts our customers. But at the end of the day, our customers are companies that ship a lot of products around the world, and there's so much complexity with that, whether you're shipping from big movements like air, truckload, ocean to courier and parcel shipments. Similar to your world where your customers are looking for more warehouses, more capacity to be able to continue to expand to allow them to grow faster. We come in afterwards and we say, okay, well, you have your network set up. Now, how do you make sure it's efficient and it's optimal? And as you mentioned before, there's a war today, there's a couple wars today. There's just always disruption, which means that a lot of our customers are forced to be firefighters, not engineers. So they're just in survival mode. Easiest way to think about that is imagine being in a warehouse and just having shipments out the wazoo. You have pallets everywhere. Can you survive? Sure. Is it going to be optimal and efficient? Never. So that's where we come in. It is that same exact methodology before transportation. You can survive. It's not going to be cost effective. So we really come in saying, okay, here's what you're doing today. Here's what you should be doing. Here's how to ship smarter to your customers. So it's all about taking data and allowing data to create that story that allows them to truly be able to ship smarter. So shipping shipments to you and me faster, cheaper, and with less exceptions. So all three are important to us and to our customers.
I love it. I'm just wrapping up my master's of supply chain, and they hammer that into your brain all the time in terms of disruptions and resilience. And knowing that to some extent, you may not know what they are, but you know that they will be there. And then just to have that in mind as you're designing your network.
We all wish that it would be easy, but that's just not the jobs that we have. If you're in the supply chain space, you like pain. And I think we also like solving new problems. So it's similar if you have kids, like you expect something's going to happen and then you got a kid sick, you got this happening. Like you just got to adapt and you want to do it as efficiently as possible because of the scale that we're all working in.
Yeah. Another way to help set the stage might be what most people are working with that's suboptimal, or things that people continuously get wrong or miss out, or common themes of people come to you and say, Hannah, I got these three problems. What are some of the most common ones people come to you with?
Most people have different problems. They all kind of come back to, from my perspective, poor access to data. And I'll say the biggest opportunities that we usually see are the people coming to us had no idea those were pain points. So they think that their pain points are their teams are being inefficient. They're using the wrong carriers, the wrong packaging. We might get their data and say, yes, those are big issues, but you have much bigger opportunities to unlock. And by doing that, you'd be able to probably impact other issues, but just much more of a financial impact. So examples that I would pop up. So using the wrong services. So we have a lot of customers think about California. They might be shipping second day air. Ground might be one day. So you're using a more expensive service and it's slower. And people don't realize this. If you tell a carrier 2 days, they're going to wait 2 days to deliver it. They're not optimizing it because they think that you want it there in 2 days. And big tech companies or for a launch will inject shipments into their networks knowing in 2 days it's going to be delivered. That's a big opportunity. Another huge one is inventory management issues. I think really to the same wheelhouse of your customers. When you don't have inventory in the right location, it means you're having to ship cross country. And that is it's very costly. So don't grow linearly when you travel mileage, it grow exponentially. So when you have inventory issues, whether it's because they're in the wrong DCs, they're in the store, whatever it might be, the financial impact of that, as well as the customer experience, is really damaged. So we really exist at scale to say, here's where you are today. Here's where you could be. And then from a data perspective with no emotion, just say, now how do we get there? And that's everyone's got tons of problems.
Yeah, I have a billion-dollar company that is consumer packaged goods, and they're in the Midwest. I helped them open up a big e-com facility in Phoenix. And then 1 year in, the idea was that would serve the West Coast, and the Midwest would serve the Midwest and the East Coast. And then 1 year in, it was, I think we've shipped to every state from our Phoenix facility as we have figured out like what inventory to store where and to try and like get ahead of that to predict better now going from 1 to 2 sites, what inventory to hold where and what to ship from where to take advantage of being close to the West Coast and the population center. And I'm sure it's gotten better now, but that was something that was just funny to see like, oh, okay, this is a journey and like it's going to take a little while to figure it out.
Yeah, there's so much inefficiency and waste all throughout supply chains, and there's just opportunity everywhere to be more efficient. People are always just in survival mode, or they think that they put in right business rules, but then they don't. And the inventory issue is always the big gotcha because you got to get to customers. But hopefully by now they've gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, now we're almost at the point of doing the next 5 year lease. And then the next forecast is like, okay, now what? Like, how full are we in the building that we've gotten? And of course, this has nothing to do with which inventory is going to which markets. This is just pure like a capacity and like how much capacity do we think we're going to need on the West Coast, like for the next 5 years. And of course, trying to forecast for 5 years is incredibly difficult. You kind of take it 1 year at a time, but you gotta be willing to wager tens of millions of dollars on it.
So how accurate are your customers at forecasting?
You know, perhaps like you, a lot of it I only see when it's a problem. So when it goes well and it's accurate, like I don't hear about it. And when it isn't, the mismatch between inventory and capacity in the building and the rent, like, and then the real estate cycle, that's when I get the call, which is like things have changed, the disruption has happened. And then it seems like we can't continue the way that we are now. We must do bigger, smaller, get rid of our space or whatever. Increasingly, I'm looking to get closer to those types of conversations because much like procurement and suppliers, like the more you can see like your tier one supplier or your tier two supplier, the more visibility you have, the better you can help. But that just requires more touch points, a deeper relationship. And our work usually is in like 5 year intervals. So it's not like there's nothing to talk about in between, but like the crux of the matter only happens, comes to a head once every 5 years in most instances. So it's oftentimes is pretty low on the list of topics to talk about.
Yeah, if it's working, why open that can of worms?
Yeah. I'm not a pro on the freight markets, but I got to imagine you are, or that's something that like you pay attention quite a bit, knowing that this all connects on inbound and outbound cargo and spend. So you got freight waves on in the TV in the background, or what do you do to like how does that enter your world and your advisory and like your work with people, like monitoring that and the different carriers?
Yeah, I actually was just at a conference on Tuesday, and Craig Fuller was the keynote. So um, we are not necessarily impacted by transportation costs. So it's been a pretty soft market. It's been very hard to be a trucker in the past several years. That will probably continue, and especially as the wave of autonomous trucks come in. There's just going to be so much disruption. But ultimately, I think there'll probably be a natural progression between just less new truck drivers entering the market and then the autonomous vehicles that can just be a lot more efficient. So in terms of the actual pricing, it's definitely pretty impactful, especially to our customers. But what I'll say is, they go through procurement cycles, which is generally once a year on the trucking, basically anything but parcel. And it's been really tough to be a carrier in these past several years since 2021. So we don't expect that to actually get better. What we are seeing is on the parcel side, the carriers are starting to increase their rates, and there's a different shift in what the carriers want. So UPS and FedEx have publicly said that they don't really want e-commerce anymore. So they're letting these
We
new
got
carriers.
enough. We did that. Yeah.
No, it just there's not a lot of margin there, and Amazon is coming in and winning. So I think Amazon is about to come in and really just become the third huge national carrier that performs well, especially because a lot of companies are already using Amazon's network from a fulfillment perspective. So it just makes sense to just give them that last mile. So from a parcel perspective, I think that it's about to flip back to a carrier market. So you're going to have UPS and FedEx that can pretty much price as they want. It's not going to be COVID levels because there's enough supply from other carriers where they just can't increase prices the way they did in COVID, which is about 20-25%. But I do think we're about to see increases that customers have to be able to budget for. On the other side, all the other carriers, we're going to continue seeing them squeezed out because the pricing is just so competitive. So the small companies are going to continue going bankrupt and the big ones are just not going to be profitable. So all to say for a shipper, um, it'll be business as usual. They're pretty much expecting this. But where I think it's going to impact warehousing is as parcel market parcel carriers start to increase rates, you're gonna have shippers diversify. So if they're
Yes.
using 2 to 3 carriers today, they're going to be forced to become nimble. They're going to look at, a ClearJet to figure out how to leverage air transit with ground pricing. They're going to look at more regionals. And what that means is you're going to have warehouses that can have more docks, more gaylords for sorting, just a lot more sophistication, which means it's going to be expensive to set that up. You're going to have some construction there. But once you achieve that, now you've got no one who has you hostage, and you'll be able to just be able to be much more efficient and run faster.
You may have to retrain your team or get more equipment or figure out your flow of how you get your shipments out. Yeah, that's awesome. That should ultimately result, though, in more resiliency and more ability to meet your customers and be on time, much less the spend itself.
Yeah, I mean the spend is important because if you can't run a business if you're not profitable.
Yeah.
I do think that you're going to have to figure out more crafty ways to be more nimble. The beauty of that is everyone's talking about AI, everyone's scared of AI, even in supply chain, which is a very complex space. And as you think about all of this
End to end visibility. Yeah, let's get it.
complexity, as you create these more sophisticated networks, it requires people that understand it to be able to design it. So, if anything, I would say that's a win. So, you're going to have to learn to be more crafty, to understand what you're doing. But those who can do that and perform will shine. Those who can't will have to figure it out. But if there will be jobs, there will be a need for that kind of sophistication and levels of just network design.
Yeah, and you upskill and then you'll reap the rewards of having those skills that you can put to use.
Exactly.
I have a customer that's in coastal market, high cost of labor, high cost of real estate, and they are all parcel. And then their customers that they ship to are almost uniformly in every state there is. And so it's an interesting academic to help them look at their network and then think through like, okay, the owner is in the coastal market and the whole team is there. And then what is the savings on real estate, logistics, and labor to be in the center of the country or in some market that is like adjacent to the center of country, and then see like what is the difference in zones and parcel spend versus the labor difference versus the real estate difference versus trying to operate. Are you ready to move to St. Louis or to Memphis or Columbus or Nashville or, Dallas for that matter? And then see where the cards shake out in terms of like, okay, well, if this is the savings and the different buckets for your business at this moment in time, like how important is that to you? And then what are all the upfront costs to try and reorganize your network that you pay today before you get any of those savings that are on that spreadsheet there? And so that's been a fun one with a particular client where I'm not a consultant that like is at McKinsey that is doing $150,000 network optimization design jobs, but they were like, "What can you do?" And you're like, "Well, let's. I could do the first pass, see what we find." And a lot of it is if you're knowledgeable enough and have access to enough data and can model well enough, at least can get like the broad brushstroke.
There's other ways to solve that problem potentially, and that's where you really got to get creative. But if they just have one DC today and their customers truly are everywhere across the US. They could also just do a line haul injection, so they could take all the shipments, pay the premium to have them come out of the beautiful West Coast, and then actually inject them, somewhere closer to the middle of the US, and then they can all go out zone 4 at most. So yeah, that's where you have to get crafty. You have to really figure out how you're designing for the future because you can't just continue to absorb costs. So at some point, you are forced to just stop and reflect and say, okay, what I did in the past should not influence what I'm doing in the future. Yes, there
Sunk
are still
cost. Yeah.
costs, but what else can I do? I mean, you gotta. It's hard. It's painful. It is expensive, but you have to design for the future if you plan
Yeah.
on living in it. And it's hard for a lot of people to.
Yeah, that's the only way. Yeah, but you have to, yeah, sacrifice and invest. Just to open that up one more notch, people do that. This line haul injection. So it'd be like taking all your shipments for the week and sending them all in one container or in trailers all to your St. Louis distribution center. That would almost be like a transload that would like take them and then break them up and ship them all or something along those lines.
Was that a question?
Yeah, just like you gave me a potential creative solution. I just
Yeah,
was hoping to
yeah.
understand a little bit better and like know that that's something that like people do out there.
Yeah. So it's actually really common, and you would actually load it usually right into the carrier's networks. So you would just say you use UPS or FedEx. You can ask them for their hubs, or you can ask ChatGPT and it's available. And then you could either do a multi-stop hub injection, or you could just do a one-stop hub injection, depending on the volume. You would run these either daily or just every few days. So there's two things that really matter, and one is the and most important is customers' expectations. So when does the customer expect the shipment?
Yeah,
Because you need to be able to make right by them. But if you can plan for it, if you can buffer the on-time promise information, then you can do a multi-hop or a single stop hub injection. You would label everything before you put it into the truck. And then once it's there, the carriers will just receive it and scan it. So that is a very common solution for huge shippers or smaller shippers.
yeah, got it. Okay, that's awesome. I love that it just fits right in with the carrier and like their network and where their hubs are. And that's one way you can like figure out what the structure looks like that you're working with or like, deciding between.
Yeah, everyone wins. You win, the carrier wins, and hopefully your customers win too. But you just got to kind of spec it all out and make sure that you have the volumes for it to make sense and it will be there when it needs to be there.
Yeah, I love it. Each example I have is like a totally different from the other, but they have similarities. So I got to imagine you have this too of like different products and different locations and different sizes with different carriers. And then you're just trying to move all the pieces around and figure out what the best way is.
Yeah, most companies have similar problems, but they feel like it's very unique to them. But it's usually like 85% similarities, and then you work on the edges to make it make sense for
Yeah.
them.
This whole invoicing accuracy, having bills that like you don't understand or you weren't sure what was charged or you're being charged the wrong way. I didn't realize that's like a common or like a pervasive and much less pervasive at scale. Is that still the case or that's there's just every carrier does it their own way and so until you know everyone's way within the network that you're working with is easy to get tripped up or what's the big problem there?
There's tons of problems, and it's because although there are standards, no one uses them. So like think about it, you go shopping. You're gonna go shopping to 20 stores, you'll get 20 separate receipts. They might structurally look the same, but they're all different. That's the same with carrier invoicing. So every carrier invoices differently. There's no standards, and shippers are complex. So it's not always the carrier's fault that they aren't invoicing accurately. Many times it's because the shippers don't give them proper information. They say, deliver it to this address, and that needs to be moved. Or they go to deliver and they're like, I need you to deliver it inside. No one paid for that. Well, that's what you have to do. So it is not an easy world that we live in. There's always continuous demands that carriers have to adapt to, and all of that creates complexity. And it almost always boils down to bad data, and that's being bill of
Bad
lading.
data. I hate it. It's everywhere. Yeah. Don't do it anymore.
It's like it's manual. There's not a lot of automation to at the inception of data to clean it up. It's still someone is handwriting it in a piece of paper. So there's so much noise. And then everyone expects different things. And you might use 100 carriers, you get 100 different invoice formats with inconsistencies. There's misspelling, there's miskeying. You might just call things differently. I might call it ground, you might call it ground delayed. So like, there's always deltas and differences, and that creates audit exceptions. So, but we don't love when carriers have exceptions. We don't. Our billing model is not for them to fail for us to get paid. We work with the carriers to fix the issues, but it's tough. And even you work with a big carrier, expediters, they're individual branches that all operate as separate entities. So even if it's a massive company, you're working with every single plant manager that's all separate. So it's complex and it's great for us. That's why we have a business to be able to take all that complexity and make it consumable. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard, because of the sophistication and the complexity that supply chain is.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not something you fix once, presumably, but perhaps you can get 80% of it done. And then the other 20 is in annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, real time.
It's continuous, and, like, think about it from an inventory perspective. When you're working with a new customer, you probably when you're signing that contract, you think everything is going to be perfect. You're using the data that you have to make the smartest decisions. But
Yes,
then they go and launch a crazy new SKU, and then that SKU, throws off everything, or they buy someone or they divest someone. This is life. If it was simple, anyone can do it, but it's not. We audit daily. I mean, throughout the day, we're getting data, and generally, there's tons of issues consistently. So whereas we might start with 20, 30% issues, we want to get that down to less than 5%. Um, we're rarely successful because there's always new issues that continue to happen. And that's why our teams come in and we automate what we can, but what we can't, we will talk with the carriers and say, you have to fix this issue for these to stop occurring. We want the data to be invoiced accurately because it creates clean data. And when there's inconsistencies, it means that people who use the data to make decisions are using bad data to make poor decisions. And you know what happens when that exists.
it doesn't get better. So the people you ordinarily work with then runs the gamut from the C-suite to the supply chain guy or the VP of transportation and the IT department?
So we normally work with logistics, procurement, and finance. Logistics are the people that run the day to day. So they're the ones taking the data and saying, how do I run faster? Procurement is using the data because they need to go source bids and they want to use better data to be able to talk to the right carriers. And then we run all the simulations for them. So if they're going to bid for 100 carriers, they say, okay, got 100 carriers, tell me what to do. And our system does all the calculations for them. And then finance uses us for the cost allocation. So every single box, we're the ones that cost allocate. So we're saying, here's what it actually was for, here's how to cost allocate it. We do the accruals for them. So making sure that at no point there's any kind of fiscal questions on what needs to be budgeted for their fiscal closes. So we become very close to all three teams. In terms of the levels, for smaller companies, we're going to come in at the C-suite. For bigger companies, it's VPs, SVPs, directors, really depending on the org setup.
Yes, totally. And then the hot take of the day would just be everybody, you had AI in IA. That was cheeky. That was pretty good.
Thank
Yeah. So,
you.
what's your last 6 months evolution been? Everyone's been on the roller coaster ride this last X amount of months, and in terms of how cognizant they are of what is available and what effort they put in to try and learn it and squeeze some juice from it. So it seems like you guys have, this is your space. So this is perhaps old news to you, new news to me in the last year. So I just would be curious what your version of the journey has been of like AI being a more useful tool and like some of the latest evolutions internally for you guys.
Yeah, AI is definitely the buzzword, and it's really powerful. We started our AI journey about 9 years ago now. AI is only really new from a large language model perspective. It's been around in terms of machine learning for about 20 years. So our biggest wins we've incorporated for the past several years, and it's using machine learning. And try and equate it just to layman's terms. The way this system works,
Appreciate that. All
yeah,
the listeners too. Yes.
it takes all of your transportation data, which is very complex. It is global. There's lots of DCs, a lot of inbound flows, outbound flows, and it has the intelligence to say, okay, here's all of this customer's data set, but then we group it into what I think are like patterns. And it does that without any kind of intelligence. So that's unsupervised. And then within each data set, it becomes an expert at predicting future shipments, which means as you go and ship out a million shipments next week, at every single shipment level, if it couldn't predict it, it is anomalous. The easiest way to equate it is through credit card fraud detection. It uses the
Sure.
same type of machine learning, where
Yep.
you never have to go in and say, tell me if someone's in a Home Depot in Idaho by 99 cents. It knows you and it says that is likely not going to be Justin. I'm going to call you, text you, email you when that happens. So they want to protect you. So that has been a huge win for us. What I will say is we started the year off with this beautiful product roadmap of where we expected to grow. In February, the advancements in AI were far beyond what anyone could have expected. So
Yeah.
my challenge to everyone here, if you are at any level, go and become an expert in every one of the AI companies. You need to be. It will once you start getting there, day one you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Day five, you're an expert. And you almost get to the point where you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna have to do? Because I can do so much. But I promise you by day 10, you're like, okay, it works. I'm automating a lot, but I still need to do more, or I can do a lot more. As long as
Yeah.
your mindset is, what new problems can I solve? And that is going to propel you. So when we think about AI, it's innovation, which is what I mentioned before, and then there's automation. For most companies, for most people, instead of using the word AI, they said, what can I automate? Because that's what we've been doing for 100 years. And then AI can solve a lot of those problems for you. And we've been leveraging it everywhere. So our engineers run so much faster, but it also has been working for us. Our audit, or it actually will tell our audit team its suggested reactions based on historical responses. It will dissect data as an analyst, and then it would say, well, here's what we should do. Let me test my thesis and then come back and say, yes, it worked, and go suggest it. So besides for just the obvious opportunities to just automate what people used to do, it's allowing us to do so much more proactively. AI is here to stay. It is like a calculator. We all use them today. Almost no one does any mathematics by pen and paper. So you
Yes.
just need to push yourself to be comfortable so that it is no longer, I don't understand AI, but you understand it. Your teams get it. And the one thing I'll say is start small. Don't start thinking, how do I change my entire company, all of my orchestration of data tomorrow? You will fail because it's
Yeah.
too hard to think about that. Start small projects, small wins for each one of your teams, and then let them become the biggest advocates. But you need to understand because it is very expensive if it is not done properly. And it's not going to be a win for you if you cannot run with your team together to go hit the AI wins.
This is internal team conversations are just like that, where you're like, oh, the amount that I have figured out, or the amount that this is helpful or powerful or insightful. Your excitement doesn't translate into their experience until they have had their own version of their small win that has sparked their own interest, or ability to understand what is possible to then want to build and grow. Has been a Everybody's probably been going through a lot of that journey, that are a team leaders and trying to figure out how to get people on board, and yeah, just being proactive about it.
Yeah, from our perspective, we don't necessarily look for ways for AI to replace our people, but we will absolutely replace people who are not comfortable using AI because we're not
Yes.
going to, you're too unproductive if you no longer have this massive tool working with you. So for everyone, I don't, there are not many professions that aren't going to get some win from an AI perspective. And you will only win individually more if you're an expert and it's free.
Yeah.
Anthropic classes, just take the time, learn it. It's not a lot of an investment. And then you can become that hero at your company. So yeah, I think it's a huge win and I'm excited to see what happens. I don't think that I'm not as smart as Elon Musk, obviously, but I don't see a world where next year, people aren't doing anything and we're just sitting at home eating. I think that people are going to be around for some time, and there's
Yes.
a big value to what we do.
Yeah. He definitely can give you an extreme example where you're like, okay, I see how you got there from your chair, but from my chair, I don't see it, or I don't see it anytime.
Yeah.
In our century. I got to imagine that also flows through everybody's WMS, transportation management systems, and other things that then allow your clients and customers to perhaps have some of that flow through that system and to their people that might elevate the kind of ways that you can help them. Are you finding that changes a little bit with all the systems people are using, like improving and causing new problems?
I wish that that was happening, that truly the the companies that we work with,
Oh,
they're
that's
so big.
2027, maybe.
Yeah, I think that in 2025, everyone felt defeated. They tried it in a big way, it failed, and then, now they have no ROI to show for it. So now they're starting smaller and trying to get wins. I do think that there's a future world. I just don't know when. Systems are all going to be performing a little bit better and then a lot better, using cleaner data. Someone's got to clean it. Someone has to think through how all of these data flows work together. But then, yeah, that will be great. And what that will allow is for what everyone is doing to just be elevated. Because I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but the people who I've talked to, it's never a question of, yeah, that's a great idea. When can I go implement? Or can I go implement that? It's always a question of timing, prioritization. They wish
Yeah.
they could go do X, Y, and Z, but they're resource constrained. And in this market, no one can hire anyone because everyone's saying AI, AI, AI. So use your people better. And I think that that's what AI will elevate.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I believe it.
How are you seeing it on your end?
Yeah, it's so funny. I just think of a little bit to your Elon example of like, what's the bottleneck in the business? And then like trying to focus on that. I've tried that framework or that lens on a little bit and then use that with AI to think through like, okay, if I'm starting small in a project, like what is the bottleneck in the present business? And then like, let's attack the bottleneck while learning and running our experiment on that part. And so that has been fun in the sense of like that could be business development. If you have revenue goals and your revenue goals require you to have a bigger funnel or more things going through your funnel, and then thinking through of like how is this valuable or can be valuable to our clients. And so it's so wild learning like all the security and privacy on one side and then thinking through like what are the challenges they're having in a transaction. And so like market data and like comps that are oftentimes opaque, like how are you manipulating that and creating more insight? Old data like sales comps, and then all like the attributes of a market or attributes of a property. So if you take pricing and availability and velocity of movement of properties on one hand, and then you take like how tall the building is, how much power it has, how many docks it has, or proximity to the port or to a labor market, and then start to look at the relationships between those two. That has been another one that has been helpful as you're helping companies like make location and warehouse decisions. That one's been super fun. And then learning of like, okay, we got lease contracts, legal language. Is there a place for it in there that is secure, that is discreet, that is valuable, that doesn't create like illegal liabilities? And so I'd say those are like maybe the three first areas that are fun to like explore and figure out what's the value add and how valuable is it? And is it valuable on a one off basis versus like at scale? Like if you put another zero behind the amount of ones that you're doing, like how bulletproof is the process that you've created? And then usually it's not. And then you figure out like, okay, well, what would make it that? So I would say that's some of the ways I've thought about it, and some of the ways our team is working through it. And yeah, it's been fantastic. And then it is timing and prioritization is a great way to think about like what is that bottleneck to some extent that's holding you back from more or greater or like having a more positive impact.
What's cool if you use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can create prompt libraries for entire teams. So you can say, I'm going to always use this prompt for this problem, and then just continue to evolve that prompt as you learn more. So at least that is creating a consistent process that everyone follows, and not everyone using AI in a separate way. But I just found that to be a great way to make sure teams are consistent in following processes.
Yeah, that is a challenge. Yeah, just you doing it one way on yours and them doing it another. You're, of course, you're going to get different results. And so for us, we are teams within the firm, but each team operates its own little, like a book of business or big book of business, depending on how you describe it. So it is interesting to think of like how do I do it within our team, and how does our team do it, much less within the firm. Yeah, we've like a shared some of these processes, skills, and prompts, but we definitely don't have like all the teams are on one enterprise or team account where everything is like shared, and each skill or command like evolves on the shared account or for like shared usage. That's definitely on the roadmap.
Yeah, when you unlock that, you can also just start to build a database that everyone can just call on. They can see other information. So, that was one of the first unlocks we had, and we actually set up a weekly call with all of our team leads to have each of them talk through AI wins. This was uh, Q2 of last year, so it's evolved a lot since then. But it allowed everyone, if you're in the audit team versus if you're in the sales team, just you might think you're solving your own problem, but it's actually interesting to listen to everyone talk about how they're using it. So another potential good win for you.
It's made it onto the weekly team meeting as a line item or a category. Yeah, and then you're like, okay, well, are you guys tired of talking about it yet? Not really. Yeah, just because it keeps like evolving and getting better, and like how could you like yeah, it's going higher up on the agenda item.
Exactly.
So that's super cool, awesome, and that is just between like inbound cargo is so different from outbound cargo, and like optimizing for stuff coming from Asia or coming from Mexico. And like we do work with a lot of like automotive and aerospace that also have to decide what's in the US, what's in the States, what's overseas. So I'm sure that's its own version of optimization. And like you play in that space too.
Yeah, and there's no easy answer to this. It is just find the best data that you have access to and then make the most informed decisions. So if you can avoid going to the US, especially because of the duties and taxes here, then don't ship into the US. Go direct to where you're going to. So the end of the day, focus on making sure you have data, getting it clean, and then once you have that, you'll make the right decisions. And hopefully you don't get burned by making the wrong ones before then. But um, inbound is a lot harder to predict than outbound. Outbound, generally, just the speed it takes to get there. So it's a hard problem for everyone to solve. No one does it perfectly. You might think you have perfect forecasts, and then you don't. So be a good partner to your carriers. And then they'll be a good partner to you. So I would, focus on that not being transactional, but really a partnership. And then they'll give you leniency when you have issues, and, they'll want to continue partnering with you. So there's, no silver bullet to answer that one, but hire smart people, use good data, and then make the best decision that you can without emotion. People are very emotional. So they feel like they should be doing this. They want to, they don't like this carrier. Let the data speak for itself.
Totally. And anything else we missed that's topical right now that people should know that are in your world?
No, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think that everyone listening knows that there's just so much complexity in this space. Not going to get better. It's only going to become more opportunistic to be able to take advantage of the latest and greatest technologies. So I'm excited for the future, especially in your world when you're going to have more robots in warehouses. You're going to have, autonomous trucks pulling up to warehouses, and there's just going to be so much more automation and efficiency. So I think that as we think about the future, we got to really let our brains think that we're not going to have the same constraints we have today in terms of inventory that we can move through our DCs. It'll be different when there's not people that are time constrained, that need breaks, that need to go to bed. You can have robots doing it 24 hours a day, trucks coming in at any time of the day. So I just think it's going to be a whole new world out there. And you have to be ready to just not let the historical information taint the way you solve future problems.
I love that. Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate you spending time today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. It's been an honor.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye bye.